Welcome to your Barbados Today evening news updates for Friday, July 24th. Prime Minister Mottley is urging residents to stay vigilant as Tropical Storm Gonzalo moves towards the southern Windward Islands. The Prime Minister made the plea this afternoon following a tour of several flood-prone areas with several cabinet ministers and other officials. At 5 p.m., Tropical Storm Gonzalo was located about 340 miles southeast of Barbados with maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. The island is now on a tropical storm warning.
Thus far, Gonzalo has behaved like a drunken person. Up and down, up and down, up and down. And when you already have that kind of behavior in the system, then my advice to all Barbadians is that we must stay vigilant and that we must prepare. Effectively, those who should be on the road tomorrow, unless the tropical storm warning is lifted, should only be the essential workers and the critical care workers in the country. And to that extent, therefore, we expect everybody to stay in and stay safe. I'm appealing to Barbadians to do it. We have had these kind of conversations, a little too much for me now. We've had it with 2 previous storms, and luckily the country has responded.
Officials at the Barbados Met Office say significant convection associated with Gonzalo has progressively gotten worse, and as a result, the system continues to weaken. On its current forecast track, the center of the tropical storm is expected to pass approximately 140 miles to the south-southwest of Barbados on Saturday. Prime Minister Mottley has urged residents to be prepared for any eventuality.
We're praying and we're crossing fingers, but we are also warning you that in every instance with Maria, Dominica, it literally developed in short order within a 24-hour period. With Ivan, similarly, it devastated Grenada, and it was not intended to do so when it was daylight. It was only during the night that they then realized that the storm was coming to them. So as I speak to Barbadians this evening, we are all saying to you to please continue to prepare. If the worst does not happen, we at least have had a dry run. But if, as we anticipate, we're going to get bad weather, at least we're going to minimize the extent of that bad weather causing dislocation to families, putting anybody's life at risk, putting anybody's limbs at risk, putting anybody's property at risk if we properly prepare. If you know around you a custom flooding, go and get some sandbags.
Meantime, a Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, Kirk Humphrey, says fisherfolk received early advisories to be prepared for the passage of the pending storm.
In that advisory, we told the fishermen to, those who can haul out their smaller vessels, to haul out their vessels, and people were hauling out at the various locations around Barbados. At Concept Bay yesterday, I think alone, between afternoon and evening, we hauled out about 17 fairly big vessels. And brought them onto the land for safety. I want to thank the fishermen, many of whom responded this year earlier than they traditionally respond. We also advised that Port St. Charles was willing to accommodate some of the fishing vessels, and many of them have made their way to Port St. Charles, so I also want to thank Port St. Charles for that. In the Bridgetown Fishing Harbour, we also made space available, particularly for the vessels in Oistins, to be able to come down and have their boats tied up safely in Bridgetown as well. So we've made some accommodation. The other thing that I insisted on, and the Chief Fisheries Officer is seeing through with it, is that persons who wanted to lift out their vessels in Bridgetown, we would undertake the cost of helping to lift out those vessels so that those fishing vessels would be safe if it became an issue where space was limited, to be able to move the vessels out of harm's way.
In other news, Barbados's COVID-19 count now stands at 108 as 2 more passengers tested positive for the virus. They are the 38-year-old mother and 14-year-old brother of the 10-year-old who was diagnosed on arrival on an Air Canada flight at the Grantley Adams International Airport last Saturday. The 2 tested positive for COVID-19 after undergoing a second test yesterday and are all in isolation at Harrison Point in St. Lucie. More passengers on that flight were to be tested today. The controversial Lord Nelson statue is to be removed from National Hero Square. Minister with responsibility for culture John King, in making the announcement today, said Cabinet had agreed to the relocation. King said the decision was made in light of substantial consultations carried out some 2 decades ago by the National Hero Square and Development Committee, as well as the Committee of National Reconciliation, which both recommended that the statue should be relocated. Cabinet, he said, also agreed that further public consultations should take place with respect to the identification of a location for the statue, taking into account existing recommendations.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, Grenadians are being urged to prepare for the worst-case scenario with the passage of Tropical Storm Gonzalo. Minister with responsibility for the National Disaster Management Agency, Winston Garraway, said while there were no plans to shut down the island before the arrival of the storm, citizens need to be extremely cautious. And finally, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has admitted that government did not understand the coronavirus during the first few weeks and months of the UK outbreak. And in an interview with the BBC, he said there were very open questions about whether the lockdown came too late.
Wasn't there a pattern that developed over time? You said you didn't need to ban public gatherings, and then you did.
No.
The government said we didn't need to wear face masks, and now we do. You didn't pursue community testing, and now you say that's vital. Isn't this a story of delay
No.
that
On the
sadly
contrary,
cost
actually,
lives?
No. If you look at the timing of every single piece of advice that we got from our advisors, from SAGE, you will find that whenever they said that we needed to take a particular step, actually we stuck
Well, maybe
to that
your scientists
advice
were wrong.
like glue. And well, Laura, maybe there were things we could have done differently, as I've said. But I think what people, and of course there will be time to understand what exactly we could have done, but or done differently.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.